Hello, and on the Average Tabletop Gamers today we're going to be looking at some average tips, and we are going to be looking at green stuff. So a bit recently I've been talking to some of my friends who've just been getting into the hobby recently, and I was describing some of the ways that you can modify your model, some of the preparation tips, and I was mentioning green stuff quite a bit. And one of my friends asked, what is green stuff? And I realised it's something, obviously, if you've been around, especially Games Workshop models for a while, you're probably very aware of green stuff. But if you're quite new to modelling and the hobby scene, you've probably not come across that too much. So we're going to be looking at this stuff. We're looking at green stuff. So green stuff itself essentially is a two-part modelling putty. And as you can see, when you buy it, it is not green. So you're generally going to buy it like this in a ribbon, or sometimes you'll buy it in a tube of pre-mixed green stuff, and you're obviously just going to squeeze out from the tube. But I say more often than not, you're going to buy it like this, where you're going to get a ribbon of blue and yellow. So the way this works is there's a yellow component, which is a filler, and you've got the blue component, which is a hardener. They will stay malleable while they're on their own, but the moment you mix them together and you knead them, and you mix it, so obviously you mix the blue and the green, it becomes the blue and the yellow, and it becomes a green putty. Then that obviously starts the reaction in the putty, and it will cure and become quite hard. So what you're going to use green stuff for? So the most common use of green stuff for your average hobbyist is simply filling the gaps or repairing some small bits. So for example, I'll put this on my close-up camera, so hopefully you'll be able to see this. But here I have, if we get him focused, here we have a dwarf from Rumbleslam, a resin dwarf. And unfortunately, during the resin moulding process, he lost his pointing finger, and so I've used a little bit of green stuff there just to mould him a new one. And similarly, also from Rumbleslam, again, I don't know if you'll be able to see these brilliantly in this camera with us yet, but you maybe see at the bottom of his fists there were a couple of little bubbles had formed from the moulding process. And then the same thing with this guy. You might be able to get in a bit closer on that one. Right, let's try it on the main camera, see if you can see it better there. You can see that he had lost his thumbs, the poor guy, and so I've used a little bit of green stuff just to try and fill in those gaps. So that's where we're obviously going to be using it mainly. And I say normally it's on the joins where you've glued two parts together, and you may have the line, especially if it's, say, like an orc's arm or a bare flesh arm. You don't want to have that line where the shoulder meets the neck. And so what you would do is you'd mix it with a bit of your milliput. You mix it with your green stuff. We'll talk about milliput in another video. You mix it with your green stuff, roll it into a thin sausage, and you're going to smooth that into the area. So I'll mix it with a bit of green stuff, and we'll talk about how we work with it. So the easiest thing to do with green stuff, especially when it's on the ribbon like this, is just to take a modelling knife, and we're going to cut off the approximate amount that we want. So I'm going to use a little bit of this because I'm going to be showing a few things to do here. Obviously the cleaner the cut we get, the better, but don't worry if you don't get too clean a cut. Now, one tip when you're using this, depending on how old your green stuff is and how exposed it's been, some people say the best thing to do is to cut out the strip where the yellow and the blue meet. And that's because even in that small contact patch there will have been a small reaction, and you'll actually be able to feel a ridge in there already of cured putty. Now I don't normally do this, but for the sake of living by my own tips and living by the tips that have been passed on by other hobbyists before me. I'm going to go ahead and do that. So we have pretty much an equal portion of blue and green, blue and yellow. Now, depending on what the use of this is, you might want to mix different portions of blue and yellow. So essentially, the more filler you put in, so the more yellow that you add, will give you a softer compound that you'll be able to work it a lot longer, but it won't be as hard a cure. The more blue, the more hardener you put in, you'll get a darker green, and you'll get something which will cure faster, and it'll cure very hard, but may not be easy to work with. So all I do in terms of getting this started is I just fold it in on itself, and just keep working like that, and you'll see steadily that the colour will turn to green. Now, next tip is have a cup of water handy, and if you don't need a lot of water, just enough water on your fingertips so they're moist will mean when you mix this, it won't stick to your fingertips and it'll be nice and easy to work with. Again, you don't want to use too much water because you'll end up where the green stuff itself will become very stringy. So I'm just going to work this here, and again, any way that you can get to mix it, but you'll see when it's a consistent green colour with no yellow or blue streaks through it that it's mixed. But of course, once we've mixed this now, we've started the curing process. So in normal conditions, we've probably got 1.5, 2 hours to work with this when it's in a workable state, and then it'll cure in about 4 to 5 hours. So that's where it'll be rock solid. But it is sculptable, so you could file it, you can cut it, you can drill it, whatever you need to once it's done. Right, okay, so we're getting on there now. So what's that look like? So there we go, so that's pretty evenly mixed. Again, if you wet your fingers slightly, you'll feel when the green stuff is mixed because it'll go tacky again. And again, you can if you just pinch it out, you'll be able to see if you've got any grains in there. But if you can see there, we should have a nice consistent green texture. So once we are ready to work with this, what we can start to do now is we can start to work the green stuff. So working green stuff, as I said, a lot of people will use it just for filling gaps or repairing little bits and pieces, but it is really good for sculpting. So there's some great tutorials available online if you'd search around for, say, adding capes or hoods to your models, or if you're particularly artistically inclined, you can sculpt your entirely own range of figures out of green stuff. And you know, there are people far better than I that can do that. But if you're going to work green stuff, you really want some tools, and the tools could be something as simple as a cocktail stick. So that's again really good for, you know, just pushing it in little gaps and smoothing it out over the top. Or you can get something like these kind of tools. So these are clay modeling tools, so just kind of wooden tools, normally meant for using with like a, you know, like a modeling clay, but something like that will work. Again, you got like the various different wires for cutting and things, or bits for smoothing. Again, you're mainly going to use something like that one, which is the, you know, the pointier prong for pushing into gaps and things. Or, and again, this is if you're going to get into a bit more of the sculpting, you can get something like this. So I'll show these here. This is a set of sculpting tools. So I believe when I bought these were labelled as wax sculpting tools, and they're normally double-ended, and you've got various hooks, points and prods and implements there for working different shapes, different types, different textures. The main tip I've got with any of this stuff is just keep it wet. So keep it damp, and it'll stop it from sticking to the green stuff. I keep wanting to say milliput. It'll stop it from the green stuff from actually sticking to the tool and sticking to the model itself. So if you keep your tools just slightly wet while you're working with it, that'll get you the best results there. The other thing you can do to work with green stuff is you can buy various rollers, and there's a few different companies that do these. So this one is from Green Stuff World, and so this one here is just a plain roller, and I'll show you a different one that I've also got, again from Green Stuff World. And this one is a cobblestone roller. So if you can see that there, it has got some texture built into it. And we'll have a go of this one in a moment. I'll use this bit of green stuff I've got here, and we'll see if we can do a textured base for a model. As I say, there are loads of different tutorials and sites and things that will show you how to get good effects from your green stuff. Anything with a bit of texture on, you can roll across this. So you'll see some modelers have got old bits of wood or bits of stone that they just use to press in to give this texture. Again, it's just use like any kind of modeling clay, anything which is going to leave an impression. One tip which I've got is if you're going to roll this out on a tabletop or anything like that, on a surface, you want to roll it flat and then do something with it. Like say I was going to use the flat roller, like just a regular rolling pin. If I was going to use that to roll this out and then put the texture on, if I do it to a flat surface, what's going to end up happening is as I try and peel this up, because this will have stuck to my lower, to whatever work surface I'm on, I'm going to end up wrecking whatever texture I've put on when I'm doing that. So what I'll do is either put a bit of cling film, or for you Americans, saran wrap, or a bit of plastic, so an old bit of a plastic bag or something down, roll it on that, because then you can lift that and you can peel that off the back without doing too much damage to your piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to now use the rollers to see if I can get this out across this base, and then I'll show you putting some texture on it, and we'll see what this actually looks like. So again, working with any of the tools that I'm going to work with, I'm always going to either apply a little bit of water to the green stuff or a little bit of water to the roller, and that's just because I don't want it to stick to the actual green stuff. I want this to roll over the top. Now green stuff is a little bit harder to work than some other modelling clays. It's quite stiff, you'll find when you're using it, and you see already there it's starting to stick to my roller, which isn't great. So I get just a bit more water on there. Let's see if we can just roll this out a bit here so we can get a good bit of texture on it. Again, it's the same as rolling out anything, you can work it in any direction you want to get it where you need it to be. Okay, let's get this where we need it, and then I'll get the textured roller, and what I'll do is here I'm just going to add a bit of water to the surface of the green stuff, because again I don't want it to stick to the roller, especially this one, because it'll be a nightmare to get this out. And then what I can do is, if I can get this in one go, there we go, and you'll see there that I've got a nice cobblestone pattern on the base, and then I can just take my modelling knife and I can just trim the edges to make it look nice and square, if that's the effect I want to go for, of course. And there we go. So I've got a nice decorative base there, which I can use for a model. So here's a tiny little piece here left. What I generally do with these, whenever I'm working with green stuff, if I have a little bit left, I generally try and form it into a rough, either a boulder shape, or if I can get it, I will try and make a little sandbag shape. And then, in true Blue Peter style, a piece that I've got left over from a previous one. And what I'll do is I'll start to then build up a little stack where I can have a little stack of sandbags here. So again, I'll just show that there on. So, and over time, all those little scrap bits of green stuff that I've accumulated will form a little dry stone wall, or a pile of sandbags, or a pile of rocks. An old friend of mine, what he used to do with anything he had like that left was he would take, again I'll use this bit to show this, he would take a cocktail stick and just take the end off, and then let's see if I can get this shape right. What he would do, he would make little toadstools, and then he's got little pre-made toadstools if you want to put those on your terrain pieces, or again as adornments to your bases. So all these little leftover bits again can be used to good effect. So the last bit about green stuff really to mention is another product which is available on the market. So Games Workshop, or Citadel I suppose technically, sell a bottle of what they call liquid green stuff. So there you go. Let's see if I can get that. Liquid green stuff. And so liquid green stuff is exactly the same as the green stuff they've been working as, except it's a bit more liquid. It says liquid green stuff. It's still fairly stiff in the bottle, but the idea is it's a bit less viscous, so you can actually get a smoother line on small hairline cracks or joins in your models. So where you may not want to be able to roll a thin enough string of that to put it in, I think the idea of using the liquid green stuff is it's designed to be painted into small cracks, small gaps, and fill small holes like that. I have to say, although I've had this bottle for a little while, I don't think I've ever really used this. I've always just made up the actual green stuff. As I say, that's a kind of quick look at green stuff, what it is, how you can use it, to start using it. Once you've got the hang of working with green stuff, and if you're that way inclined and you're that artistic, you can start sculpting your own models, or you can start building extras on your models. So as I say, the world's your oyster at that point. Capes, hats, new accessories, new weapons, whole new appendages, whole new models. So hopefully, if you didn't know what green stuff is, you know what it is now. You've got a few quick tips to get you going with green stuff, and as I say, the best thing to do from that point is to start exploring various sites that specialise in selling green stuff accessories. So as I say, things like that, the textured rollers from Green Stuff World, or as one particular site, that is great for this kind of stuff. The only thing with Green Stuff World I would say, especially if in the UK, is they are based in Spain, and so you've got the exchange rate to worry about and any import tax should your order get stung by customs on the way through. But saying that, if you've got big projects to do, or you've got lots of bases where you want to be doing it, a textured roller is going to get you very far when you're working your green stuff. But yeah, so all I'd say is get yourself some green stuff, start filling your model, start filling the gaps, start converting or building your own models. Have fun with it, and remember, it's just like modeling clay. So if you make a mistake, you've got a while that you can redo it. Okay, so thanks for watching, and we'll see you very soon with more from the Average Tabletop Gamers. Ta-ra.